Hi. Well, in Earthware, we've done over 200 projects in the last nearly 10 years using Agile. But we've also coached and trained a bunch of clients and other organisations on how to implement Agile in their organisation. And here's 3 tips I would offer you as to how to do that successfully. So tip 1, be agile about Agile. I would urge you to resist the temptation to take one dogmatic approach like waterfall and replace it with another dogmatic approach where the only way you do Agile is like this, follow these steps, in this 250-page playbook that we've given you. The whole point about Agile is to be agile about it. So it's okay to vary your sprint names, the tools you use, the amount of documentation you do, the amount of people on your core team. Even you should be changing that as you go through retrospectives and learn a little more about what makes your project go really well. So that's the first one. The second thing is, and I say this all the time, is Agile is not an excuse for anarchy. So once you've been released from this Gantt chart driven exercise of waterfall, you might think that's an excuse to throw everything up in the air, and that doesn't work very well either. So whilst doing a sprint is really useful for getting a team to focus on a specific amount of work in a defined time period, you should always have a view about what's coming in the future. So you should have a plan. But the great thing about Agile, and one of the principles is, you should always be willing to change that plan as you get wiser along the journey. And the third thing is, you've got to think bottom up and top down, and in fact, even sideways. So what do I mean by this? So if you're the person that has this great idea to do Agile and you don't have the support of other members of your team, then it doesn't tend to work very well. You're met with resistance and cynicism. So one way you can get around that is by taking them on a journey. And often we do that using a minimum amount of training. So we often do a half-day training course using Lego, but it gets everybody to a certain level and gets them to understand the why behind using Agile. The next thing is that you'll only get so far without some senior support, and especially from your project sponsor. So they don't really understand why you're doing this, then they're likely to be resistant in doing what you need them to do to be successful. And the third thing is, and this is the sideways, is most projects need help from other people within your organisation or even outside. And so if you don't engage them early enough and explain to them why you're going in this direction, then you might be met with resistance as well. So we find that if you get functions engaged early, then actually they tend to be really pleased with adopting Agile. It tends to reduce the amount of time they need and engage them in decisions early when they can influence them, rather than late when they're just saying either yes or no. So in summary, be agile about Agile, don't use an excuse for anarchy, and get the right people involved and get them involved early.